What's up everyone and welcome back to Punchlytics. Today let's dive into Islam Makhachev's next UFC move, which may have just been leaked. Since Islam Makhachev's win over Hanat Moano, there's been no real news on when the champion will be back in action. At the same time, the lightweight division still doesn't have a clear-cut number one contender. Given that Dana White has stated that Arman Tsarukyan will have to earn another shot at the title, things remain uncertain. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. With contenders like Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, and Ilia Topuria looking to compete for the title, the UFC has plenty of options on the table. However, according to what Money McConnell is hearing, the champion might be waiting to see how things play out between Belal Muhammad and Jack Della Maddalena before deciding his next move. In a recent video on his YouTube channel, Moano spoke about the situation in Portuguese, stating Islam Makhachev is waiting on the Jack Della Maddalena versus Belal Muhammad fight. He's hoping JDM beats Belal Muhammad so he can fight for the 170lb belt. That would leave the lightweight belt vacant, and they'll have to figure out what to do next. Money McConnell isn't the only one predicting that the Muhammad-JDM fight has major implications for Makhachev's next move. Last month, Ariel Helwani suggested the same thing on his show, stating that if Belal loses to JDM, Islam Makhachev would finally have a chance to move up and fight for another belt. In the meantime, the champion is working on new techniques in the gym and was recently seen smothering his training partner in a video shared online. The same idea was discussed by Charles Oliveira's manager and coach, Diego Lima, as well as Eurosport MMA reporter Alvaro Colonero. In a recent interview, Colonero quoted Lima as saying, if Belal doesn't win the May fight, Islam would have a chance to move up a weight class, and we would be left with Topuria and Charles. But if Belal wins, he would stay at lightweight, and we'd have to see with the UFC who would be next, Topuria or Charles, because it depends on the UFC and Islam's decision. From Lima's perspective, the lightweight title will likely be up for grabs this summer at the UFC's International Fight Week card, but the matchup remains a mystery. This fight will happen at International Fight Week, which will be huge. I think Makhachev and Charles should fight there, but figuring out the matchups will be a little more complicated. We care a lot about the belt. We want that belt. He told me he wants to fight in June, but if we don't have the BMF or the title fight, I don't know if we would take another fight. Maybe Justin Gaethje, who has been in great fights and sells well, or a rematch with Dustin Poirier, who also sells a lot. Charles needs to fight big names. From the sounds of it, Oliveira and his team are actively negotiating with the UFC, aiming for 2 fights before the end of the year. The last meeting was 10 days ago, and they told me they were working through negotiations, but they wanted something very big for Charles Oliveira because he's a huge draw. Charles wants International Fight Week, and he wants to fight twice this year. Fighting on June 28th would give him room to fight again at the end of the year. Meanwhile, Arman Tsarukyan may have just booked himself his next fight. After Justin Gaethje, or rather someone managing Gaethje's account, who fans suspect is Ali Abdelaziz, called for a title shot, Tsarukyan responded, "You barely got past number 11 on short notice, and before that, you got sent to the Shadow Realm. If you really want to be the number one contender and fight for the title, you have to go through me first." During an interview with Helen Yee, Tsarukyan revealed that he's targeting a return in either April or May, but so far, Gaethje has not responded to the call-out. Alex Pereira on UFC 313 loss and talks of a rematch. This past week, Magomed Ankalaev ended Alex Pereira's reign, capturing UFC gold via decision. Although all 3 judges scored the fight for Ankalaev, Glover Teixeira isn't convinced. In a video released on Pereira's YouTube channel on Wednesday, Teixeira spoke about the fight, stating, "In my opinion, Pereira won. He lost on points, but now we go back to the drawing board, adjust a few things, train hard, and get this rematch to make history. Poatan has made history before, and he will do it again. He's a great warrior, and I'm very proud of him." Peno Cruz added that the loss will only help Pereira evolve and improve. Rivalries make us grow. It went Ankalaev's way this time, so we'll train more, study more, and deliver a better version of Poatan. What this guy has done is make things worse for himself because now he'll face Poatan 2.0. This isn't the first time Poatan has stumbled, and a true champion is one who falls but keeps moving forward to reclaim the title. Pereira himself spoke about the loss, saying he has no excuses and is looking forward to the rematch. Of course, this is not the result I was expecting. I was confident going into the fight. I trained hard. Some things happened, of course, but I don't want to make excuses. I know there will be a rematch. They're already talking about it. With how the fight went, many people questioned the decision and had their doubts. I still haven't watched the fight yet. Meanwhile, Ankalaev continues to call out Pereira, setting the stage for what could be an epic rematch. For a rematch on X, he said the following last night. "I'm ready for round 6, but this time, We're not going the full distance. Let's go, guys. After P gets his immediate rematch, Jan Blachowicz is hoping to position himself for another shot at the champion and the belt. During an appearance on the Ariel Helwani show this week, he outlined his ideal path to retirement. I beat Oldberg, then I take a title shot against Magomed Ankalaev. I beat Ankalaev, then I get a rematch against Pota. I defend the belt against P, perfect scenario for me. Then I can go to the mountains again. While some members of the MMA community criticized Magomed Ankalaev for his failed takedown attempts, Anthony Smith defended the newly crowned champion on his podcast, On Paper with Anthony Smith. Ankalaev is an absolute liar. He did wrestle, which was very, very smart. I'm not complaining about him wrestling. It's just not what he said he was going to do. But he probably should wrestle. That should be the number one thing in his arsenal. Listen, a failed takedown isn't a failure. Pota was rolling through the first round. He looked super comfortable, like he was having a good time. He had his range down, looked sharp, until the wrestling started. P then spends the next 21 minutes worried about when Ankalaev is going to level change. Either he's not as bad of a wrestler as people say, or Magomed Ankalaev is not as good of a wrestler as they claim. With an immediate rematch in the works, we'll have to wait and see. Paddy Pimblett responds to Dustin Poirier's comments after the Paddy Pimblett versus Michael Chandler fight was announced. Dustin Poirier was asked by a fan on social media how he sees the fight going. Responding to this, the former interim champ said that although he doesn't like Chandler, fans should hammer the money line for him in the fight. During an interview with Papa Legaspi released this week, Pimblett fired back. He said something about me the other day, didn't he? Saying like it's legends only, and that he thinks Chandler will beat me. So if he does retire, I think he should have more than one fight. He looked good in his last fight. I don't understand why you'd retire when you look good. But you know, he must be an idiot. But yeah, I think I'd beat Dustin Poirier, so I'd love to fight him. With Poirier seemingly on his way out, the odds of this fight happening are pretty slim, even if Paddy gets the win over Chandler. However, despite Poirier's comments, it sounds like Pimblett still respects him. Dana White releases UFC fighter following a loss to Markel Mados on the UFC's Duat Imol card last February. Landon Cones has been removed from the UFC's active roster. At the start of this year, a full year since his loss, Cones announced that he was stepping away from fighting in an emotional Instagram post. I have made the decision to take a step away from fighting. It hurts to do this, but this sport has taken more out of me than most people can fathom, to the point where I can't even focus on the tasks in front of me. I love martial arts. As much as it has taken from me, it has also given me unforgettable experiences and opportunities. I need a break to find my love for it again, and to give myself security. This is not a retirement post. I'm 29 years old and have plenty left in the tank, but I have to get my shot together. Sometimes, you need to take a few steps back to take giant leaps forward. When I'm secure, I'm coming for everyone's head. See y'all soon. While he made it clear that he was not retiring, it seems the UFC has decided to part ways with Cones. Additionally, in the wake of his loss on last weekend's Analia Para card, Jalen Turner has decided to hang up the gloves. After initially announcing his decision backstage, Turner followed it up with a post on Instagram while leaving the door open for a return. Thank you for all the love and support. I started training MMA at 18 in 2013 in my backyard. A SoCal-born, i.e. raised kid with no path and a big dream. God opened the door to MMA when I didn't know where else to go. I gave myself 4 years to fight in a big promotion, and I did. Then, in the 5th year, I got to the UFC in 2018. Made it to the top 10 in the toughest division. I made it into a video game. Looking back, it doesn't feel real. I love you all. I'm sorry I lost my focus and fire earlier than expected. 29 years young, time is on my side. I wish I could reply to everyone's messages. Just know all the positivity has helped me more than you all know. I appreciate it. All things can change. We'll see what the future holds. As both fighters look towards their future, the support of the MMA community is definitely behind them. Marvin Vettori goes off on Brendan Allen. Ahead of this weekend's card at the Apex, Marvin Vettori took some time to fire shots at Brendan Allen during Media Day on Wednesday. The two have been at odds for a while now, ever since they were set to fight back in April last year. At the time, Vettori was forced out of the fight due to injury. A couple of months later, they were involved in an altercation after the PFL 8 event, with Allen dropping Vettori with a 1-2 combo. The altercation was caught on camera, but due to YouTube's guidelines, we unfortunately can't show it. Now, ahead of Vettori's fight with Roman Doet this weekend, he went off on Allen after his loss to Anthony Hernandez last month.
It's not even that relevant. No, to be honest, he was going up. I knew it wasn't going to go past the top 5. So I was kind of wanted to be smart a little bit, where let me get it. He has a bit of hype. It's coming from 5-6 wins. And I want to be the one that give him a loss, But now he's got 2 losses. He was trying to look over me. And look what happened, If I want another easier, not easy, but easier fight, maybe. If not, if I want to really get into with the big boys up there, then I'll easily skip him. To be honest, it's almost waste breath to me talking about him.
Although he's currently ranked 8th, Victory told Paavo Verab this week that he'll capture UFC gold and become the first Italian champion. As always, we want to send a huge shout out to Paavo for allowing us to use the clip.
I think it's very deep. The level of competition got higher. A lot of good fighters, not gonna lie, a lot of tough fights. But that excites me, that's good. That's good. That means you have to raise the bar in the middleweight division, that's for sure. And that's why I have to raise the bar for myself too. And because if you don't get better, you're gonna get crushed. You're not gonna become champion, I believe. I think it's very deep. We have good fighters, and it's good. I'm excited. I'm gonna show that I'm a real contender, and I'm gonna be number 1, first Italian champion. But step by step, Now all my focus, it starts with Saturday. I have to put on a great performance on Saturday, and then we'll go from there.
With Allen ranked 10th, depending on what happens this weekend, a rescheduled fight between the two makes sense. UFC updates ahead of UFC updates. This weekend's Victor Dolly card. Let's look at today's UFC updates, starting with the change to the Fight Night card on May 17th. The event was originally expected to take place in Qatar, but Marcel Dorf is saying that it's now going to be taking place in the Apex. Along with moving the location, the UFC has also reportedly booked fights between Johnny Walker and Azamat Murzakanov and Curtis Blades and Rizvan Kuniev for this card. The Walker-Murzakanov fight will see Walker look to snap a 2-fight losing streak, which most recently saw him lose to Volkan Ozdemir back in June, while Murzakanov will look to build on a 4-fight winning streak, which most recently saw him finish Alonzo Menefield in the 2nd round last August. In the case of the Blades-Kuniev fight, this is a rebooking after Blades was forced off this past weekend's pay-per-view card at the last minute. This will be the 3rd time these two have been booked to fight, so hopefully this is actually going to take place. Last but not least, we got Billy G looking for a fight. In a post on social media on Wednesday, he shared a picture of a worn-down UFC duffel bag along with the caption, "Yo UFC, my bag is worn out. About time for me to retire it, so get me a fight so I can get a new one." Goff has been out of action since May, when he dropped a decision to Trey Waters. Since then, he's had 2 fights fall through. UFC reveals Des Moines fight card last night. Late last night, the UFC revealed some huge fights. The UFC revealed their Des Moines card in Iowa, which is taking place on May 3rd, and it's stacked. It's important to note that the UFC is returning to Des Moines after 25 years for the main event. We have a 5-round fight between Davison Figueiredo and Corey Sandhagen. With both fighters coming off a loss, it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. The UFC also revealed Bo Nickal versus Renee Derer, which seems like the co-main event for the card, an amazing fight for both fighters. At the moment, Bo Nickal is ranked, and RDR is currently number 13 in the middleweight division. This is a huge fight for Nickal to break into the top 15 rankings. Moving on, we have a shocking UFC return. Jeremy Stephens is back in the UFC, and is fighting on this card against Mason Jones. We don't think anyone expected this. Stephens was in BKFC and got a huge win over Eddie Alvarez, and we're guessing the UFC was impressed and re-signed him. What do you guys think about all these fights? Let us know in the comments below. Justin. Gaethje reveals sad news. In a recent episode of Behind the Curtain of UFC 313 on YouTube, Justin Gaethje revealed that his toes are injured following his brawl with Rafael Fiziev. Gaethje managed to either break or sprain some of his toes during the fight. Usually toe injuries heal quickly, but if Gaethje broke his toes, he could be sidelined from training for at least 4 to 6 weeks. Could this possibly hurt his chances of getting a title shot since Islam Makhachev wants to fight in the summer this year? Like we mentioned, Gaethje could be out for at least 4 to 6 weeks, and then a training camp usually lasts 6 to 8 weeks. If everything goes right, the earliest he'll be able to return is in June. Let's hope the damage isn't too bad, and that Gaethje can return for a potential title fight soon.